When Jungkook's new song is played, Jimin immediately cries. Only he knows the meaning of love in every lyric musical notes, sparkling heart. "Turn it off," Jimin screamed, his voice cracking through the quiet of the studio like glass shattering on concrete. The music had only just started. A gentle piano, soft strings swelling underneath, a melody that felt too familiar, too dangerous. But it was the voice, Jungkook's voice, that pierced through Jimin's chest like a blade dipped in memory. He lunged for the soundboard, his hands trembling, eyes wide with something between panic and grief. His knuckles turned white as he fumbled for the volume knob. Too late, the first verse played. "You once told me silence was louder than love, but I heard every word you never said." Jimin froze. His knees gave out. And just like that, he crumpled to the cold studio floor, tears slipping silently down his cheeks before he even realized they had started. His breath hitched. The world blurred. He couldn't move. Because this wasn't just a song. This was their story. Only he knew what every lyric truly meant, because he had lived each one, in the quiet moments behind closed doors, in the stares too long to be casual, in the goodbyes that never felt complete. Outside, Seoul shimmered in the night, a city alive with noise and neon. But inside this studio, time stood still, trapped inside Jungkook's voice, each note echoing like ghosts in Jimin's ears. The door creaked open behind him. He didn't have to look to know who it was. The air shifted. Familiar perfume, a blend of cedarwood and citrus, washed over him. Taehyung, his best friend, his brother in everything except blood, and the one person who might have been able to stop what was about to unravel. "Jimin, what happened?" Taehyung's voice was low, careful, as though afraid one wrong word would shatter him completely. Jimin couldn't speak. He only pointed, toward the monitor where Jungkook's music video now played. Taehyung followed the direction with his eyes. The screen showed Jungkook walking through a sunlit forest, fingers trailing over the petals of white roses. But there was something in his gaze, something lost, something desperate. I didn't think he would ever release it," Jimin finally whispered, voice hoarse. Taehyung crouched beside him. "What is this song? What's in it?" Jimin stared straight ahead, as if looking through time. "It's every moment we never spoke about, every almost we buried, every second I thought I could love him in secret." A beat of silence. "You loved him." Taehyung's voice was tight, unreadable. Jimin's lips trembled. "I never stopped." And that was the truth he had hidden for years. Not from the public, not from their fans, but from himself, from Jungkook, from everyone who saw them laughing on stage and thought they understood. He had built a fortress of smiles and timing, of professional distance and safe silences. But now Jungkook had torn it all down in under 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Because this wasn't just a ballad. It was a confession. Each lyric, each harmony, each pause, it was Jungkook speaking the words they never dared to say. And now, he had said them to the world. Suddenly, the bridge played. "Even if you never look my way again, I'd choose you in every life I'm given." Jimin choked. That was his line, his words, whispered once in the backseat of a van at 3 a.m. when he thought Jungkook was asleep, words that had haunted him for years. And Jungkook remembered. He had turned Jimin's secret into music. "What are you going to do?" Taehyung asked gently, already knowing the answer. Jimin wiped his face. His expression hardened into something raw, determined. The kind of look he only wore when he danced through pain or sang through heartbreak. "I need to see him," he said, standing up with unsteady resolve, "before the world hears the rest of this album." Because if this was the first track, Jimin knew what would come next. The song about the night they almost kissed in Tokyo. The one about the fight in the rain in Paris. The lullaby Jungkook wrote when Jimin collapsed during rehearsals in 2020. Each one, a page from a book no one else had read. But Jimin had lived every chapter. And now, the story was out of his hands. Somewhere across the city, Jungkook sat alone, waiting. Maybe he had expected this fallout. Maybe he didn't care. Or maybe, just maybe, he had been hoping that Jimin would understand. That he would finally come back. Jimin grabbed his coat and keys, not even bothering to hide his swollen eyes. Because sometimes, the only way to answer a song like that was to sing your truth back. And he wasn't going to waste another verse in silence. Why now? Jimin's voice echoed through the marble hallway as he slammed his palm against Jungkook's penthouse door. Why the hell did you do this now? The door remained closed. No answer. Jimin's breath came in uneven gasps, eyes burning from the freezing wind and the tears he'd tried to blink away in the elevator ride up. The city lights blinked far below, mocking him with their indifference. He banged again. I'm not leaving until you open this door, Jeon Jungkook. You owe me that much. A pause, then a faint click. The door opened slowly, just enough to reveal Jungkook's silhouette, shirtless, chest heaving slightly as if he had been running. But his eyes, they looked like they hadn't slept in days. Jimin pushed the door wide and stormed inside, brushing past him. So you do remember. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He closed the door behind them gently, like he was afraid any sudden movement might break something fragile between them. I remember everything, Jungkook said finally, voice low, rough. Jimin turned sharply. Then why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you tell me before you turned it into a damn album? Jungkook's jaw tightened. Because you told me not to. That was 4 years ago. Jimin's voice cracked, raw with disbelief. You knew I was scared, you knew I wasn't ready. But this, dropping it like a bomb for the entire world to hear. I didn't do it for the world. Jungkook stepped closer, eyes dark, steady. I did it for you. Jimin laughed bitterly. No, you did it for your truth, not mine. You just dragged mine into it like it was your right. Jungkook flinched, just barely, but Jimin saw it. The pain behind his calm mask. That familiar flicker of guilt he wore when he thought he'd gone too far. You once told me, Jungkook said slowly, that love is only real when it's safe. But what if it never becomes safe? Do we just pretend it never happened? Jimin looked away, hands clenched. You don't get to ask me that. I do, Jungkook snapped. Because I loved you in silence for years. I watched you laugh at interviews while I died behind my eyes. I listened to you talk about ideal types, pretending we didn't lie next to each other the night before. And now, when I finally speak, you come to my door like I'm the villain. You don't know what it was like for me, Jimin shot back. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day wondering if today's the day someone finds out, if today's the day it all burns down. And I did, Jungkook's voice thundered through the room, shattering the calm. You think I didn't check every camera angle, every mic left on by accident. I risked everything every time I looked at you on stage. They were inches apart now, breath colliding in the cold air between them. Then why didn't you just let it stay a memory? Jimin whispered. Why now? Jungkook stared at him for a long moment. Because I'm tired of loving you in shadows, he said, and because I thought maybe you were tired too. Jimin's expression twisted, something between grief and longing. Jungkook took a step back, his voice suddenly softer. But I was wrong, was I? You didn't cry because you felt the same. You cried because you were afraid. No, Jimin said, shaking his head. I cried because I do feel the same. Silence. Then, Jungkook's voice barely above a whisper. Then why are we still doing this? Because they had loved each other in stolen glances and midnight silences, in lyrics that never made it to the final cut, in bracelets hidden under sleeves. Because they had built a world together out of broken rules and unspoken vows. But they never gave themselves permission to exist in that love. Now it was too real. Jimin moved to the window, looking out at Seoul. The label, going to lose it. They already have. Jungkook gave a half smile. I gave them the final cut the night before release, told them if they changed a word, I'd walk. You risked your entire career for a maybe. No, Jungkook said, stepping behind him. I risked it for you. Jimin turned, eyes wide. You're insane. I've always been. Jungkook's lips quirked, but his gaze remained steady. For you. The silence now was different, heavy, loaded. Track 6, Jimin said suddenly. Is it about? New York, the hotel balcony, Jungkook replied instantly. When you said you wished time would stop. Jimin exhaled shakily. You wrote about that night. I never forgot it. Jungkook's voice was quiet. You looked like you were about to kiss me, but you didn't. Jimin closed the distance, their bodies almost touching. Do you know how hard it was, being that close to something that felt like home and not being allowed to step inside? Jungkook's eyes searched his. Then step in now. I don't know how, Jimin whispered. I'll show you, Jungkook said. But they didn't kiss. Not yet, not here. Because something still hung between them. Not doubt, but consequence. Jimin stepped back. We're not kids anymore. This isn't just about us. No, Jungkook agreed. It's about what we choose now that we're finally free. Jimin didn't answer. But he stayed. He didn't run. Not this time. And somewhere across the room, the speakers, still quietly on, began playing the opening notes of the next track. One Jimin hadn't heard yet. But the title flashing on the screen made his breath hitch. Park Jimin. His name. Just that. No metaphor, no hidden meaning. Just truth, naked, terrifying, beautiful. And finally his. The moment Jimin heard his name as the title, his spine stiffened like a pulled wire ready to snap. There was no code this time, no lyric left to interpretation, just his name on the screen, bold and unflinching. He turned sharply to Jungkook, who stood near the speaker, chest rising and falling with visible restraint. What the hell is this? Jungkook looked at him with something close to defiance. It's yours. I told you. I wrote the truth. You didn't write the truth, Jungkook, Jimin seethed. You exposed it. You think I did this to hurt you? Jungkook's voice cracked. Do you even know what it took to write that song? The opening chords began, a slow, haunting rhythm that felt like a heartbeat slowed by fear. Jimin stepped closer to the monitor, his voice shook. This was supposed to be our secret. It was killing me, Jungkook said. Keeping it locked up, pretending you were just a chapter I never opened. And you thought airing it out to the world would fix it. No, Jungkook snapped. I thought maybe it would force you to stop hiding behind the illusion we built. Jimin moved so quickly Jungkook barely had time to flinch. He grabbed the remote and paused the track before the first lyric could drop. You don't get to decide when I'm ready, Jimin hissed. You don't get to rip open wounds I spent years trying to close just because you're finally brave enough to face yours. Jungkook's lips parted, then shut, his fists clenched. So what? We just stay ghosts, pretend those nights never happened. They're not yours to weaponize. They're ours, Jimin, and I'm done pretending I didn't love you. The words hung in the air like lightning about to strike. They both went silent. The weight of everything unspoken between them pressed down like thunderclouds. Jimin turned away first, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, as if the city outside might provide some clarity. Behind him, Jungkook's voice softened. The label wants to pull the track. Jimin froze. They called me last night, Jungkook continued. Said it was too risky, too specific. They said people will connect the dots, that it would ruin both of us. Jimin didn't move. And what did you say? I told them to go to hell. Jimin turned slowly, eyes narrowing. That's suicide. That's honesty. No, that's selfish. Jungkook's jaw flexed. Do you hear yourself right now? You're accusing me of being selfish for finally loving you out loud. No, I'm accusing you of dragging me into your courage when I'm not ready to drown in it. A thick silence stretched between them. Then Jungkook took a breath and walked toward the stereo. He pressed play again. The song began. Jimin's name, whispered like prayer, then lyrics soft and trembling. He moves like dawn breaking after sleepless nights. Smiles like he's guarding 1,000 secrets. And I loved him when I wasn't allowed to. Jimin's breath caught in his throat. He never kissed me. But he did. In all the ways that mattered. Stop, Jimin said, barely audible. But Jungkook didn't stop. He closed his eyes and sang along under his breath, his voice breaking mid-note. He said he was scared. So I built a world where he'd be safe. Even if it meant I couldn't stay. Jimin walked over and slammed the stop button. The room fell into a vacuum of silence. You think this is poetic, Jimin said, voice shaking. This is a confession. You just gave every obsessed fan and every journalist a loaded gun and pointed it at our heads. I'd rather die honest than live fake. Jimin turned to him, and for a split second, Jungkook saw it. Rage, heartbreak, and something deeper. I hated you for a while, Jimin admitted, each word slicing like a blade. I hated that you got over me faster, that you could smile on live broadcasts while I was still waking up from dreams where you were next to me. I never got over you, Jungkook said. I just got better at pretending. Jimin shook his head. You don't understand the risk. This isn't just about our names in tabloids. This is everything. Our careers, our families, our image. Our freedom, Jungkook interrupted. Don't forget that part. I can't be the first one to fall, Jimin whispered. Because if I fall, they'll never let me get back up. Jungkook's face softened. Then let me be the one. I don't want you to be the sacrifice. I don't care. That's the problem, Jimin shouted, stepping forward. You don't get to not care when I do. They were close again, too close, hearts thudding in tandem. I wrote this song because I needed you to see me, Jungkook said, voice low. Not the idol, not the image, me, the one who fell for you and never landed. Jimin stared at him, broken open. A beat passed. Then another. Jungkook reached up slowly, brushing his fingers against Jimin's cheek, testing, trembling. Jimin didn't move, didn't flinch. Their foreheads touched, breath shallow. If you're going to destroy us, Jimin murmured, at least let me help you set the fire. And then they kissed. Not like in the movies, not clean, not perfect. It was desperate, messy, raw, years of longing exploding in seconds. Lips that remembered, hands that never forgot. It was everything they had buried, unearthed with violent grace. When they broke apart, both were breathless, eyes wide with shock and recognition. Jimin's voice was hoarse. What now? Jungkook smiled faintly, the sadness still etched into every corner of his face. Now we write the ending together. But outside, the world was already moving. On social media, theories were catching flame. The lyric breakdowns, the fan edits, the way Jimin had vanished from the group chat hours ago, the way Jungkook's eyes had looked during the live performance, like he'd sung to someone who wasn't in the crowd. Their secret wasn't safe anymore. And the next chapter, it would either save them or ruin everything. But for the first time in years, they didn't care. Because the lie was over. And the truth had a name. Park Jimin. The headlines hit like a hurricane by sunrise. Jungkook's new song sparks identity speculation. Is Park Jimin more than just a name? Hidden romance or artistic stunt, armies divided over lyric controversy. He never kissed me, but he did. Fans demand truth behind viral track. Jimin's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Notifications flooded in like a dam had broken. Calls from the label, cryptic messages from mutual friends, panicked texts from staff, and one single, heart-stopping message from his mother. Are you okay? Whatever happens, come home. He sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands, fingers twitching with the urge to scream. The cold morning light poured through the wide windows of Jungkook's penthouse like judgment. The song was only hours old, and already their entire world was beginning to fracture. Don't check the internet, Jungkook said from across the room. Holding a mug of untouched coffee, staring blankly at the wall like it had betrayed him. Jimin's voice was hollow. Too late. I warned you. No, you didn't, Jimin snapped. You told me we'd write the ending together. You didn't say the ending would begin before the rest of the world could even blink. Jungkook's jaw tightened. So what, we go back, hide again, pretend none of it happened? I don't know, Jimin stood, running both hands through his hair. I don't know what the hell we're supposed to do, but I didn't agree to a war overnight. It's not war, it's a reckoning. And who exactly made you judge, jury, and executioner of our lives? I made a choice, Jungkook said firmly, because I was tired of letting fear make it for me. Well, congratulations, Jimin hissed, because now we're trending on every damn platform and not for our music. We're not idols today, Jungkook, we're tabloid bait. Jungkook flinched, and for the first time that morning, his mask cracked. You think I don't know that? You think I didn't spend the last week vomiting every night, wondering if this would kill us? Then why do it? Because loving you in silence was killing me faster. The words hung between them, trembling with weight neither of them could bear. Jimin exhaled sharply, looking out the window at the gray skyline, dull and lifeless. I can't lose everything. You won't. You don't know that. I don't care. Well, I do, Jimin's voice broke as he turned, eyes wet and blazing. Because I've spent the last 10 years building something that wasn't supposed to break, and now one has put everything at risk. Then tell them it's not about you, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin froze. Jungkook's voice cracked. If it's too much, if you need out, I'll take the fall. Say I made it up. Say it's fiction. Let the blame fall on me. The silence was deafening. Jimin stared at him, stunned. You'd let them crucify you alone. I already did, Jungkook whispered. I've been bleeding on stage for years and calling it performance. What's one more wound? The doorbell rang. They both froze. Then again, 3 sharp knocks. Who is it? Jimin mouthed silently. Jungkook moved cautiously toward the door and looked through the peephole. A shadow shifted. The voice that followed was low, controlled, and unmistakably dangerous. It was their manager. Open up, Jungkook. We need to talk, now. Panic flickered in Jimin's eyes. Jungkook didn't move. Don't, Jimin whispered. Not yet. But the door handle jiggled. The man on the other side had a key. Within seconds, the door swung open. Manager Seo stepped in, suited, eyes sharp as razors, lips tight with thinly veiled rage. Behind him were 2 others, company legal counsel and their PR crisis lead. All 3 looked like they'd come straight from a war room. You've both made a mistake, Seo said coldly, not even pretending to soften the blow. One that could dismantle years of carefully controlled branding. It's a song, Jungkook said calmly, an honest one. It's a confession, Seo snapped. One with legal implications, and it needs to be walked back before this explodes further. Define walked back, Jimin asked bitterly. Deny, discredit, delete. You have 48 hours before every tabloid, news outlet, and international fan base starts dissecting your relationship under a microscope. There is no relationship, Jimin said reflexively. Everyone went quiet. Jungkook looked like he'd been punched in the chest. Jimin realized too late what he just said. No, he said quickly, turning to Jungkook. That's not what I... But Jungkook stepped back. Just 1 step, but enough to feel like miles. Seo exhaled through his nose. Good, that's our angle. We spin it as creative expression. Fiction, just another misunderstood love song. We've done it before. I'm not doing that, Jungkook said flatly. You'll do what protects the brand, Seo said. Jungkook scoffed. Is that all I am to you, a brand? No, the PR rep interrupted smoothly. You're an empire, and empires don't get to cry over love songs. Silence. Then Jimin spoke, voice tight. And if I don't agree? Seo turned to him. Then we have a bigger problem. The board is already talking contingencies. Suspension, contract reevaluation, termination isn't off the table. You drop me, Jimin asked, stunned. We'll erase you, the lawyer said quietly. Jimin blinked, once, twice. Then Jungkook moved beside him. If you drop him, he said, you drop me. Seo's expression didn't flicker. We anticipated that. You don't understand, Jungkook said, voice rising. You can't blackmail us into lying. You're idols, Seo snapped. Lying is your job. The silence afterward was explosive. And in that moment, something in Jimin broke. He stepped forward, shaking with fury, voice low and clear. "You want a lie? Fine, I'll give you one." He turned to Jungkook, looked him dead in the eyes. "This song," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "it's not about me." Jungkook's face drained of all color. His lips parted slightly. The team exchanged glances. "Understood," Seo said coldly. "We'll prepare the statement." They turned to leave. But just as the door was closing behind them, Jimin said softly, only loud enough for Jungkook to hear, "Because I need to protect you more than I need to be with you." And the door shut. Neither of them moved. Jungkook stared at the floor. Jimin turned away, shoulders trembling. Outside, the world kept spinning. But inside that room, everything had stopped. The apartment was too quiet. Jimin leaned against the cold kitchen counter, fingers gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping him upright. The echo of what he'd just said, the words that weren't meant to be true, but needed to be spoken, still rang through his head like a curse. "It's not about me." He had delivered the lie perfectly. No tremble in his voice, no hesitation in his eyes, just enough conviction to convince the wolves in suits that he was ready to be their puppet again. And now Jungkook hadn't spoken a word in 23 minutes. Jimin could hear him packing in the living room. The creak of the floorboards, the short bursts of breath, the way his footsteps would pause like he wanted to scream, but didn't know which wall deserved to be punched first. Finally, the packing stopped. Then Jungkook's voice came, low, bitter, and unfamiliar. "You didn't even look at me when you said it." Jimin didn't turn. "I had to." "You didn't." "I did." Silence. Then footsteps again, closer this time. "And what now?" Jungkook asked. "You expect me to pretend I didn't write that song for you, that it's just another track about some faceless love that never existed?" "I expect you to let me protect you." "You expect me to let you leave me behind," Jungkook snapped. "There's a difference." Jimin finally turned, eyes tired, haunted. "You think I wanted this?" Jungkook's voice cracked. "You chose it." "I chose you," Jimin shouted. "Don't you see that? I chose to carry this pain instead of watching them tear you to pieces. They wouldn't have touched me if you stood beside me." Jimin laughed bitterly. "You're not that naive." "Then be braver." "I can't." Jungkook flinched at the rawness of his voice. "I can't," Jimin whispered again, softer this time, "because I've spent my whole life being what they needed me to be, perfect, safe, predictable. If I choose you publicly, I don't just break character, I destroy it." Jungkook took a step closer, then stopped himself. "I thought love was supposed to be worth it." "It is." "Then why do you look like you're mourning it?" Jimin closed his eyes. Because he was. He could still feel Jungkook's lips on his, still hear the way his name had trembled in the song, still see the boy who had once held his hand under a coat in the back of a van, thinking no one noticed. But now they all noticed. The internet had erupted overnight into theories, speculations, edits, and death threats. Fan bases were fractured. Hashtags were split between Protect Jimin and his Jungkook Reel. Jungkook's Spotify had hit an all-time stream high, and with it, an avalanche of scrutiny that made Jimin feel sick to his stomach. He turned back to the sink, running cold water just to ground himself. Behind him, Jungkook spoke again, quieter this time. "Do you remember the first time I told you I loved you?" Jimin's throat tightened. "Don't." "You were asleep," Jungkook said, ignoring him. "Or I thought you were. We were in Japan, room sharing. You had your face turned toward the window and I said it like it was nothing, like it was safe because you couldn't hear me." "I did hear you," Jimin whispered. Jungkook let out a soft, broken laugh. "Yeah, I figured that out when you stopped looking me in the eye for a week. I was scared. I was patient." "I know," Jimin said, voice cracking. "God, I know." He turned slowly, and their eyes met again. And it was unbearable. Years of longing, guilt, shame, fear, all bundled into two pairs of eyes that had seen too much and said too little. "You want the truth?" Jimin asked. "I always have. I loved you before I even knew what love was." His voice shook. "Before the fame, before the fans, before the masks. I loved you when you were just Jungkook, the kid who wouldn't stop humming in the practice room. And I never stopped. Not even when it would have made everything easier if I had." Jungkook's breath hitched. "But if we go public," Jimin continued, "we don't just tell the world we're in love. We tell them we've been lying to them for years. Let them be angry. They'll hate us. They already hate us." Jimin blinked. "They hate what they don't understand," Jungkook said. "And maybe they always will. But I don't want to live for their understanding anymore. I want to live for us." Jimin stepped forward. "And if it kills your career?" "I'll build a new one." "And if it kills me?" Jungkook reached out and touched his cheek gently. "Then we find a way to survive it together." For a moment, Jimin let the illusion linger. That maybe they could be brave. That maybe the fire wouldn't burn them to ashes this time. But then Jungkook's phone lit up on the table. One name. Yoongijungkook. Jungkook glanced at it, hesitating. "Answer it," Jimin said. Jungkook picked up. "Hyung." Yoongi's voice was sharp, urgent. "Where?" "Jimin." "Here. I just got off the phone with PDNim. The board in chaos. They're preparing a media blackout. You've got 24 hours before they issue an official denial. And they're planning to say, listen to me carefully, they're planning to say the song wasn't about Jimin at all, that it was a dedication to a fictional narrative." Jimin's face went pale. "They can't do that," Jungkook said. "They can and will," Yoongi said, "unless you both come forward together before the press does." Jungkook looked at Jimin. Jimin shook his head. Yoongi continued. "I'm not calling to pressure you. I'm calling because the decision you make in the next 24 hours is going to define everything. Not just your careers, your lives." "I understand," Jungkook said softly. "Think fast, the wolves are circling." The call ended. Jungkook put the phone down. Jimin looked out the window again. Then, quietly, with the smallest tremble in his voice, he said, "If I walk out now, would you still wait for me?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "I'll wait for you forever." Jimin nodded, heart breaking. "Then don't." He walked past him, opened the door, and left without looking back. And for the first time, Jungkook didn't try to stop him. The next morning, Seoul woke to a media blackout. Jungkook's song, Park Jimin, vanished from all streaming platforms. His Instagram was wiped clean. Press statements began to circulate from the label's official accounts, brief and emotionless. All artistic content recently released was purely fictional and does not represent any personal relationship between members. Jimin was silent. So was Jungkook. No live streams, no airport photos, no member interactions. Armies erupted. Some refused to believe the statement. Others demanded an apology. The fandom splintered overnight, and with it, the fragile hope of something real. Jimin sat alone in his apartment, watching it unfold from the floor. He hadn't left since the morning he walked out of Jungkook's place. His phone had rung 17 times. He didn't answer once. Every ring was like a wound. The world wanted answers. But what was left to say? He had chosen the lie. To protect him. To destroy himself. It was Yoongi who finally came to the door. He didn't knock. He used his spare key, the one Jimin had given him during tour years ago, and walked in like a ghost returning to a battlefield. "You look like hell," Yoongi said, taking one glance at him curled up in the corner, hoodie drawn tight. Jimin didn't answer. Yoongi sat beside him. "The label, going to let this die," he said. "They think the silence is enough." Jimin whispered, "Isn't it?" "No." Silence stretched between them. Yoongi pulled out a folded piece of paper from his coat. "He wrote something, before the song dropped, said he'd give it to you if things got bad." Jimin didn't move. Yoongi left the paper on the floor and stood. I'm not going to tell you what to do, he said at the door, but I'm tired of watching people break for something that's supposed to save them. And then he was gone. Jimin stared at the paper for a long time. Finally, with fingers trembling, he opened it. Jungkook's handwriting, messy, emotional, unmistakable. If this ends badly, I don't want your last memory of us to be the lie you had to tell to keep us safe. I want you to remember the night we kissed for the first time. The way your hand fit perfectly in mine like it always belonged there. I want you to remember Tokyo, how you looked at me across that rooftop like I was the only person who mattered. I want you to remember the stupid bracelets we wore during Magic Shop, the ones hidden under sleeves but never hidden from each other. I want you to remember how I looked at you during rehearsals when you weren't watching, because those were the only moments I could love you without fear. But mostly, I want you to remember this. I never needed the world to believe in us. I only ever needed you to. That's what love means to me. The tears came then, slow, silent, unstoppable. It wasn't the kind of crying that broke things. It was the kind that finally let things heal. Jimin stood, took a shaky breath, and turned on his phone. The screen lit up. He went to his camera, pressed record. His voice was steady, bare, true. I know the world, waiting for a statement. I know you want to know what was real and what wasn't. A long pause. And then, it was all real. The video was only 59 seconds. But that was enough. He sent it to Jungkook with a single message. Post it, I'm ready. The next morning, the internet burned again. But this time, it didn't matter. Because this time, it wasn't about fear or hiding. This time, it was about love. And love, they both finally understood, was never meant to be silent. The end.